Hello and welcome to part 2 of your Tuesday lesson about slope-intercept form. Today we're going to talk more about the y-intercept of a line. We already talked a whole lot about slope last week, so we want to look at the y-intercept number, which is this other number in the equation of a line. And here's the part that we didn't look at so much in the last video. This y-intercept number, this is where the graph crosses the y-axis. It's the y value of the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. So let's look at what we meant by that. In this example up here, the y-intercept number was -5, and the place where it crosses the y-axis down here is at the point 0, -5. So that's what we're looking for. We're just going to kind of go backward with it this time. So instead of saying, oh, this number is a -5, so I'm going to put a dot at 0, -5, instead we're going to say, let's look at this graph. Where does it look like, where does it look like this line crosses the y-axis? Well, it crosses right here, and that's the point 0, -5. So then the goal will be to write the equation of this line with a -5 in that spot. So let's practice that. Here we have a couple of graphs, and the instructions say to find M and B. The first thing I want to identify is where the graph crosses the y-axis, and that will be our B number. Well, let's zoom in a little bit and look at this one closely. Now, the place where this graph crosses the y-axis is right here. This is the place where the red line crosses this vertical axis. And that's the ordered pair 0, 8. So if the instructions say find M and B, this piece tells me that B is equal to 8. From there, I need to find M. That's my slope. We learned how to do that in the last lesson. Remember, you want to count rise and run. But in order to count rise and run, you need some more points on here. So let's follow along this line until it gets to another place where it crosses right at the corner of a square, and there's one. And then keep going until it gets to another spot where it crosses right at the corner of the squares, and there's another one. And there's another one. So I'm going to be following these stair steps and see what happens. If I go down and over, down and over, down and over. Now I can see from far away looking at this, it's going to be a negative slope, right? Because this is a downhill line. So I know my slope will be negative. M equals negative something. I'm going to count my rise and run to find out what exactly my slope is. So rise, 3. Run, 1. And one of those is going to be negative in order to make this happen. I usually like to just call the rise negative. So this is going to be -3 over 1. And that simplifies to just -3. So here's my answer. B is equal to 8. M is equal to -3. Let's do the same thing on the next one. The first thing I want to look at is exactly the point where this red line crosses this vertical axis. So the place where that happens is right here. And that's the point 0, -6. So let's see what that tells me. B is the y-intercept. So in this case, B is -6. Next thing I want to find is my slope. In order to do that, I need some more points on my line. So let's see. Find a nice one that's right at a corner. Here's a spot. And then let's go backwards to see if we can find a nice one that's right at a corner. Here's another spot. These are kind of far away, but I can still count in between them. So let's draw some stair steps up and over. Those are my stair steps that I'm counting. Now this distance, this is the run. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. this distance here, this is the rise, and that's going to be 3. 1, 2, 3. So my slope as rise over run, 3 over 7. No negative signs involved here because I can see from far away this is an uphill line, so I don't even have to worry about any negative signs. So here are my two answers. B is -6, M is 3/7. And once you know those two pieces of information, it's pretty easy to write an equation that says y equals mx plus b, right? So that's what we're going to be doing in the next example. We're going to do the same thing here, but we're going to take it one step farther and actually write the equation after that. So my first goal will be to figure out what's b and what's m. And then I'm going to write an equation that says y equals mx plus b, except I'm not going to have a letter m, I'm going to put a number in that spot. And I'm not going to have a letter b, I'm going to put a number in that spot also. So those two numbers will go in those two spots. All right, so let's jump in. Here's the place where my line crosses the y-axis. So what value should we assign to b? Let's zoom in there just in case you can't see. B is going to be 4. To find the slope, we need some more points. So let's see. Find a nice one. There's a nice one. Here's another nice one. La la la. There's another one, another one, another one, another one. And draw your stair steps. Now, first of all, let's take a look and say, is this a positive slope or a negative slope? Before we even get started counting, positive or negative? This is definitely going to be a negative slope. So I'll put my negative sign there before I do anything else. And then see how big my stair steps are. So in this case, I'm going down 2 over 3, down 2 over 3, down 2 over 3. So my slope will be a rise 2, a run 3. As long as you got that negative sign, it turns your rise 2 into a down 2 like it's supposed to be. So -2/3 is your slope. And then remember the formula says y equals mx plus b. So we got to decide which number goes in which spot here. We're going to put the -2/3 in the m spot. That's right here. And we're going to put the 4 in the b spot. That's over here. So this is the equation of our line in the end. Whoops, go away. Oh man. -2/3 x plus 4. That's what we were looking for. Let's try another one. Let's zoom in on that spot where this line crosses the y-axis. What do you think is the y-intercept? My y-intercept is going to be -2. The next thing I need to do is find the slope. So before we start counting, let's say, is this a positive or negative slope? Definitely positive. And then let's get some dots on the line in order to count. There's my dots. Here's my stair steps. And then let's count the size of each of these stair steps. Each one is going up 1 unit and over 4 units. So my rise is 1, my run is 4. How should I write my slope? My slope is going to be 1/4. So the next thing I'm going to do is write the equation of my line. Y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to put a number here, and I'm going to put another number here. And you got to pay attention to which one should be which. Now the m is the first number. So this is the number that's going to go in the green spot, and then comes the b. So this is the number that goes in the blue spot. We do all of these things kind of backwards because the equation says mx plus b, slope times x plus the y-intercept. But it doesn't matter whether you're graphing or whether you're trying to find the equation of the line. The y-intercept is almost always the first thing you look at. So this is going to end up saying 1/4 x plus -2. Now we don't really like having a plus a negative right next to each other, so we're going to write y equals 1/4 x minus 2 instead. Now back to Delta Math. Let's do a couple of example problems where we write the equation of a line. Now we're going to always start by writing y equals in the box because that's what the slope-intercept formula says. Y equals mx plus b. And then we're going to find the slope. They put some points on here for us to help us find the slope. So if we count from one point to the next here, we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My rise is 5. My run is 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is a negative slope. So my slope is going to end up being negative 5/4. Now I'm using keyboard shortcuts to put this in the box, and I recommend you guys do the same. Take your tablet out of tablet mode and back into regular laptop mode and use the keyboard to help you type these things in. It'll go a lot quicker. So there's my slope. Then I put my x. Oop, I don't want the x down there. Be careful of that. Get out of that fraction and then put the x. And now let's find the y-intercept. In this case, what's the y-intercept? And that's a +3. So I'm going to say +3 in my equation. Let's get another one in practice again. First thing I want to do is find my slope. So in this case, what do you think the slope is? Now we're going to make sure that we simplify it. So if you write your slope as a fraction and it's able to be reduced all the way to a whole number, we want to do that. We also want to consider, is this slope positive or negative? This is definitely a negative slope. So my slope number is going to be -1. So I'm going to start by typing y equals -1x. And then I'll put my y-intercept on here. What does it look like the y-intercept is? And that's +6. So I'll say +6. Now, if we look through this example, you'll notice it's also perfectly fine to write the equation as just simply -x. -x means the same thing as -1x. So make sure you recognize that, especially if you're given an equation that just says -x, that you know that that means a slope of -1. Let's look at the next one. First of all, is the slope positive or negative? Definitely a negative slope. So I'm going to start typing y equals negative, and then I'll put my slope on here. If I'm counting my stair steps, what do you think the slope is for this graph? Slope is going to be -1/2. And make sure you get out of that fraction to put your x out in front. And next comes my y-intercept. What's the y-intercept of this line? My y-intercept is a -1, and we don't like to type plus a negative. That's just too much all in one spot. So instead of plus a negative, we're just going to write -1. There we go. Should we do one more example? Okay. Take a look at this one and see if you can write the equation before I do. first thing I see is definitely a negative slope. So I'm going to start typing in the box y equals a negative something. Then I'm going to count my rise and run to find the slope. If I start at this point here, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. So that's a negative 5x. My y-intercept is down here at negative 8, so minus 8. There we go. Let's go back to the notes. We got one more type of problem to talk about. Sometimes you want to graph a line and it's not necessarily in slope-intercept form to begin with, so you need to make sure you watch out for problems like this. If it's not already in slope-intercept form, you need to get it that way before you can answer any of the rest of the questions about what's the slope and what's the y-intercept. So here we have this y on the left side along with the 5x. We can't have that. We need the y all by itself on one side. So to get the y by itself, I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. And that will leave me with a y equals negative 4 minus 5x. But we really like to have the x term written first. So I'm going to switch those around. This is going to be negative 5x minus 4. Since both of these terms were negative, they're both still going to be negative here. Be really careful with those negative signs though when you're switching things around here. So this tells me my slope is negative 5 and my y-intercept is negative 4. Now I can graph it. Remember, the y-intercept is where you start. My first point is going to be at 0, negative 4. From there, I'm going to count my slope. So my slope is negative 5 over 1. So this is like down 5 and then over 1. Or I could think of my slope as 5 over negative 1. So this is like up 5, back 1. We can do it either way. Let's start like this. Down 5 over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. I can't go down 5 over 1 again. I'll run off the graph. So now let's look at it the other way. What if I go up 5, back 1? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ran off the graph there. And then I've got quite a few points that I can get my ruler and connect, and there'll be a straight line. Now, if you put a bunch of points on here and they don't make a straight line, that means you did something wrong. These should all be lines. Let's look at another example like this. Once again, we have a graph that is not in slope-intercept form. So we need to get it that way. We're trying to get y by itself. So first thing I'm going to do is subtract the 3x. And now this says 4y equals negative 8 minus 3x. The next thing I'll do is divide by 4. And I have to divide every single term by 4 to make that happen. So now I have an equation that says y equals negative 2, that's negative 8 divided by 4, minus 3/4 x. I'm just going to switch that around to get it in slope-intercept form, get that x term first. So I have negative 3/4 x minus 2. Remember the y-intercept, this is where you start. Start at negative 2. And from there, I'm going to count my slope. I need to make sure that overall I'm going downhill because this is a negative slope. So if my rise is 3 and my run is 4, I could go down 3, forward 4, and that's a downhill line, right? Down 3, forward 4. Or if I want to go the other direction, I go up 3, back 4. And I can do that a few times also before I run out of space. And then all those dots can be connected by a ruler. If you do this correctly, you should end up with all these dots in a straight line that you can draw a line through with a ruler. All right, for the rest of the class, you're going to work on MathXL homework. And remember, if you have any questions, you've got Mr. Baker. He's an expert. He used to teach calculus when he was a full-time math teacher. So I promise you he can handle this stuff. And he would be happy to answer your questions if you have any. So try to take the rest of this time in class and get as much work as you can get done so that you can go enjoy field hockey this week, enjoy the pep rally tomorrow, and hopefully get up to the field hockey game on Thursday and not have to worry about math homework in the meantime. I will be back tomorrow. The only reason I'm out today is because my son's elementary school is closed for election day. And tomorrow is a CB day, so I will see you tomorrow morning before the pep rally, before your community time. So if you have any questions, we can talk about them then as well. When I do see you guys tomorrow, I don't want to have a negative report from Mr. Baker. Please don't make me assign demerits when I'm coming back. If you need a little bit of a break, stretch your legs, get your wiggles out, whatever, then excuse yourself to the bathroom one person at a time. Take your bathroom break, take a little walk around the block, get a drink of water, come back in, and use this time to take care of your homework so you don't have to do it the rest of the week. And I can't wait to see you guys again tomorrow.